singing.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Say Report. I'm your host, Devon Decker, and joining me, my host companion, Sejohn.
Hey, everybody. Oh, I thought you were holding... I didn't realize it was a pinter pause. I apologize.
Oh, it totally was. I apologize for that pinter pause. But we live in a brave new world, Sejohn.
Oh my. What's going on today?
I don't know. What is more important? The fact that KFC now has its own Mountain Dew, and it's peach flavored, and it's like oddly intoxicating.
No, I mean, isn't that the way of the Dew? Like, the rarer it is, the better it tastes.
Or the fact that Peter Parker is Spider-Man.
What the...
Hi, ladies and gentlemen. So yeah, there's going to be spoilers. That's not a spoiler, is it? Saying that Peter Parker is Spider-Man?
You know what is a spoiler that I cannot wait to discuss, and I don't know how much discussion there is to be had about it. J. Jonah Jameson.
J. Jonah Jameson.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was awesome.
What an awesome... Yeah.
But that's it. We are far from the former world as we embark on this new world order that is post Spider-Man Far From Home. And that's going to be a big part of this episode, I think, because for the first time since I can remember, we both saw the latest Marvel movie with enough time to record an episode to discuss it. Right?
And I mean, besides Endgame, which we ended up not wanting to record about. But yes.
Well, I think if you listen to the Say Report and you listen to Say Report Junior, you can splice together the order of how we enjoyed that film.
That's pretty fair.
I'm just happy that you're the top of the totem pole and Dale is the bottom. I'm happy to be in the middle with your brother. Zach, I should say his name too.
Yeah.
Granted,
he who shall not be named.
He who shall not be named. The brother of Sejohn. Which, someone asked me your brother's name, and then when I said it was Zach, they're like, why such a normal name? And I'm like, they went biblical.
Zachariah is I guess it's a normal name, I would say. But yes.
It's not Sejohn. Which
I had somebody for the first time in my life today know exactly where it came from when I talked to them on the phone. You know, like I work I work on a phone every day, and I'm talking to random strangers every day, and you better believe that I don't get anybody to ever even say my name right, let alone a guy go, "Oh, you know that is, what is the word, derives from St. you know, and that's actually St. John. That's how we would spell it here in England, and that's pretty awesome." And I said, yeah. And then he goes, "You know, James Bond used it once." And I said, I do, because funny enough, both of those things are the reason I have this name.
When you have a unique name, you tend to know all about it.
Yeah, but I for sure don't doubt for a second, and this is probably the first time I'm putting this on tape, but my parents like to talk about like Wuthering Heights or whatever when they talk about where my name's from.
Wuthering Heights is nothing.
Either way, they're full of shit. It came from James Bond.
Yeah, but you know, James Bond is cool. There are worse things to have your name come from. But yeah, so there's some, I don't even know. I just want to talk about Spider-Man, but we should probably talk about other stuff to like let people run away.
Yeah, I mean, we can talk about a few other things first. I saw a whole bunch of weird movies this past weekend that we could definitely talk about.
I saw two movies. One was weird and one was awesome.
Yeah.
Not that the weird one wasn't awesome. It was just weird.
What'd you see?
Well, it was 4th of July weekend. So that means that a new Escape Plan came out. And
of course it does.
I just went out and rented it. I didn't try to buy it with a Friday release date again, like I did a year ago. But
have they done space yet? Are they in space yet?
No. And I don't think they're going to. I feel like this was the end of the franchise. Even though there's totally a setup for a sequel, there's double setups for a sequel. But like listening to everybody talk about it, the Hades, Escape Plan 2 Hades, which we talked about a year ago, and I said,
phenomenal twist ending.
Oh, you're never gonna guess who we are. I don't believe it. That movie, like Sylvester Stallone, in order to promote Escape Plan 3, which is just Escape Plan: The Extractors,
Which I
went
feel
out.
like was the name of the first movie. Is that not the first movie?
No, the first plan is just Escape Plan, but he is an extractor in that as well. So it's Escape Plan 2, Hades, and then Escape Plan: The Extractors. There's your trilogy. And honestly, the way that Sylvester Stallone was like, "Hey, I have a new movie coming out," was, man, Escape Plan 2 sucked, huh? It's the worst movie I ever worked on. And I've been in Stop 'Em, My Mom Will Shoot, and Rhinestone. This is not a good
annual
Sylvester
reshoots of
Stallone.
those movies every year. I was about to say, how you've been hiding this terrible impression from me. Where does this come from?
It's more Frank Stallone than Sly. Let's be honest. But yeah, that's so I read that whole article and I'm like, well, I need to rent it. And it wouldn't be 4th of July weekend if I didn't watch an Escape Plan movie.
Okay.
Let's just be honest. And the coolest thing about it is it's shot like a 70s action movie where there's no fight choreography. It literally is, hey, let's the two of us get in the fight on camera.
Oh no.
And
no.
So it's
not...
long
oh, no.
takes, like just the camera running and Sylvester Stallone beating up Devon Sawa. Unrecognizable. Like, the reason why I knew this movie was coming was because I followed Devon Sawa on Twitter, because I like to keep tabs on all the other Devons out there in the world.
I mean, who doesn't follow Devon Sawa on Twitter, though? Like
that's the thing. I've come to find out that he's actually an awesome person to follow on Twitter, but I need to let you know, there was a time in my life where I was fearful of a Highlander-esque quickening for Devons. So I'm like, I need to keep tabs on all of them.
I suddenly feel stronger.
There can be only Dev 1. But I'm not proud of that. I'm gonna be just honest. So he said that his new movie came out today, and I'm like, Devon Sawa's in a new movie? Escape Plan: The Extractors. And then when I searched that again, like to get the release date, and Redbox is where I found Sylvester Stallone being like, Hades sucked. And the two movies were apparently shot like side by side. Each one of them was a 20-day production, which like is insane to think of in 2018, 2019. And it's also crazy to think that like one of them was a 20-day cycle and is garbage, and the other one took place in 20 days and was like electrifying. Like, because everything felt like off the cuff, probably because none of it was choreographed. Like, it's like, we don't even know what's going to happen. Maybe he's going to have a knife in his hand and stab this guy.
All I can think of is the fist fight in They Live, and about how that was never truly choreographed. That was just Roddy Piper and fucking Keith David just making something up because they were supposed to fight, and they were just like, hey, Mr. Carpenter, this fight scene's a little bland. Mind if we just go at it for 20 minutes? John Carpenter just filmed the two of them just doing whatever in the back alley for 20 minutes.
And it's awesome.
It's
It's so awesome that we remember it. And it's that kind of stuff where, like, there's a whole fight scene between two, like, we're really good martial artists. And it's just like, oh, God, what's going to happen next?
Wow.
That's awesome. Then there's a moment where Sylvester Stallone like sets up, spoilers for Escape Plan: The Extractors, a film, as far as I know, only available at Redbox. MoviePass is one of the people who funded this film. So like that sort of tells you something about the quality of the movie, unfortunately. It's great though. It's great shut down your brain gritty action. And he like sets up a strobe light and hides in the corner with his gun. And then you're like, all right, so the guy's going to come and he's going to be distracted by the strobe light. He's going to get shot, right? Like, that's what he has set up. Nope. Pipe through the guy's fucking throat.
Oh, God. Jeez.
Like, sharpened pipe, squick, like it's a straw going into a freaking juice box.
Oh, my God.
So good. So good. And Devon Sawa, again, completely unrecognizable, like channeling Gerard Butler to the fact that Dale's like, it's gotta be Gerard Butler's son.
Oh man, that's fucking wild.
So it's crazy, it's good, and it totally is like, there's no second movie. What's second movie? John Tucker was never in this franchise.
So you said was that the weird but awesome one, or was
That was
the
the
awesome
weird
one?
but awesome one. The awesome one. Well, why don't you share a movie and then I'll share my awesome one? Because also the one that's awesome, it triggered me a little bit later on in the night.
Okay.
So,
Well, now you're setting it up. Okay.
all right, I can finish through and then you'll clean it all up. You'll come in with your bucket and mop away all the weird anger that I felt.
I gotta know what you saw.
So I saw Aladdin 2019.
All right.
And so here's the really, really crazy thing is last week we like talked about, man, we got to see this and we got to do this. And we did it. But like, it wasn't like I had a checklist. It's just like stumbling through the day and doing all the things. But yeah, so I saw Aladdin 2019 and it was excellent. Like, it was a really, really good movie.
Cool.
Which, I mean, kind of surprising because of how I felt about Beauty and the Beast. And I was afraid it'd be closer to the camp of Beauty and the Beast than to the Jungle Book. Firmly in the Jungle Book camp. Where, like, no, we have respect for the original one, but, like, let's turn some shit on his head.
Yeah.
And have some
Yeah.
fun with it. But yeah, and, you know, Will Smith did a phenomenal job. I mean, it's his wheelhouse for all intent and purposes.
Cool. Very cool.
But what triggered me later on in the day, Aladdin. I'm gonna call you Aladdin from now on because it's like Sejohn, and you ain't never had a friend like me. Sejohn, if you would be so kind here with no preparation, could you sing the opening 2 lines of Friend Like Me?
No.
Okay. Would you want to go look up the lyrics and just
you
give
want
us
me
like?
to? I thought you were asking a trivia question.
No,
Okay.
no. I mean, you can look up the lyrics. It would be cool if you could just do it.
Oh, I'm sorry to disappoint.
No, it's fine. We each bring something to this podcast, and very clearly, Disney lyrics is in my camp. I really wish that like if you looked at me and saw my player stats, it'd be like extensive Disney musical knowledge.
Yeah, for sure. That would definitely be top of the list for you. I think that Link to the Past playtime would be up there.
That'd be in my weaknesses section.
You think?
If we were going Jumanji, like, you can't walk by Link to the Past or he won't get involved.
Oh, it's the 40 Thieves line. All right.
Yeah.
Yes. So, well, okay. Wait a minute. Scheherazade. I got these lyrics in front of me. What do you want me to do with them? You want me to sing them or say?
I would like you to say or sing them, whatever.
Well, Alibaba had them 40 thieves, and Scheherazade had 1,000 tales.
All right, cool. So that's what I needed you to say. I have to sing them now because I feel like an elder god, Shrunabag from freaking Fantasia is gonna come get us just because of what just happened. Well, Alibaba had them 40 thieves, Scheherazade had 1,000 tales. So that's the song, right? And I'm watching Aladdin, and it sounds like Will Smith singing that song goes, well, Alibaba had them 40 thieves, Scheherazade, he had 1,000 tales. And Scheherazade, very famously a woman. Like the whole story of Scheherazade, a woman. And it sounded like Will Smith said he.
Uh-huh. And the question I have is, did you mean to say Alibaba?
No, I said that wrong.
That's
Alibaba
amazing.
had them 40 thieves. Yeah. I don't know. Alabamba. Had them 40. Yeah, so I gotta stop singing the song. So, and I heard that, and they do it twice. Like, there's semi-spoilers for Aladdin. That, like, kind of weird version that was floating around on the internet is like a bullshitty crap version that he does before going into the full, like, lavish musical number. They
Uh-huh.
played it really cool in the film. And sorry. And I heard it both times, hear him say Scheherazade he, right?
I got it figured out.
Yeah.
You ready for me to blow your
No,
mind?
you're not going to blow my mind because my mind has already been blown.
Did you look it up?
Yeah, I looked up the lyrics.
And what it is
Scheherazade.
yeah.
So it's a weird pronunciation thing that like Robin Williams did, and it sort of has basis later on in the song where it's, you got me oh shoot, you got me locked down something certified, you got me bona fide certified, you got a genie for a charge of fare. It's like, so like that's just how the genie pronounces words that end with D silent E. Is real weird. And that
A really, really fucking weird reveal that I never knew.
that I never knew because I have always sung the song. Well, Ali Baba had them 40 thieves. Scheherazade, she had 1,000 tales, like a normal human being would. like I'm not a genie. I never claimed to be a genie. I found a genie once in college, but that's a failed pilot for an Adult Swim TV show. Later.
I have to
days.
say that this has got to be a discussion that had to have been had, right?
I
somebody had to be talking to like Alan, are you sure this is what this is supposed to say? No, yeah, no, that's what it is. But I don't know if he's supposed to. Nope, that's the way he says it. That's the way you're gonna say it. Okay.
Yeah, it blew my mind because I was like, I'm like, it really kind of threw me that Will Smith's version said Scheherazade he, and it's just like, that's very odd because they make a lot of really good changes to like make it more authentically Middle Eastern storytelling. Like the line in Prince Ali goes from brush off your Sunday salam to brush off your Friday salam, which makes sense because that's their holy day. And I'm just like, that was awesome. It threw me a bit because it was different lyrics, but then I'm like, no, nice job. Like that's how you do it. That's how you modernize something.
Man.
Way to go. But then I'm like, but it's weird that like he thought Scheherazade was a guy. Famously the female narrator of 1,001 Nights, Arabian Nights.
Right. Man, that is
So then,
I never realized that lyric.
So then, like, I listened to it with Dale, the Will Smith version, and she's like, I think he's just saying Scheherazade, but like with a weird pronunciation. And I'm like, that's a real weird pronunciation. And then we went to the lyrics and found it, and I'm just like, my whole life is a friggin' lie. I have believed the lyric was Scheherazade, she had 1,000 tales, because I came to 1,001 Arabian Nights long before I got to Aladdin, which is even crazier considering I was 6 at the time. But like, I was raised on folklore from around the world. That's what my parents raised me on. So I knew it. And, you know, it was fun, but that was my Saturday night, was just like, man, that movie was really good, but then, like, my whole life has been a lie.
I need to ask, any good, like, Guy Ritchie-ness to the directing, or does he just let it just be a Disney movie?
No, there's definitely good Guy Ritchie-ness to it.
Yeah, all right, good. Like, you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Like, some good, like, Snatch, like, filmography, and, like, some really
oh my God, all the choreography in this is so Guy Ritchie inspired. And there's this one moment, again, spoilers for Aladdin, where they're jumping and landing in splits down a staircase at the end of Friend Like Me, which is 1943's Jump and Jive. Like, that's all I could think of when I saw them doing that, and I'm like, that's the kind of thing Guy Ritchie is going to be like, I'd really like to incorporate this. Like, do you think we could incorporate this into the choreography? Whoever the choreographer was. But also, like, just everything in the streets of Agrabah was so Guy Ritchie. It was cool. It was very cool. And also the humor felt very Guy Ritchie in the fact that, like, Aladdin is sneaking out of the princess's chamber, and he's confronted by one guard, and then two guards come up behind him. And then later, as Prince Ali, he is leaving like an accepted visit to the princess's chamber, and the former two guards are the ones he runs into, and the single guard is the one who comes up behind him. And I'm like, that was Guy Ritchie right there. Like, that was him like, we're gonna flip it, but only kinda.
Nice. Yeah, well, I think that it's interesting because you were talking about this on the scale of, as we said, Beauty and the Beast to Jungle Book. That seems to be the two extremes right now, right? And the idea that this falls more that way, I think that you can point to that they let the director as an artist do what they wanted with the story, you know, and not just the director, everybody involved do more what they wanted artistically. Whereas Beauty and the Beast, we talked about forever, is just so shot for shot. It doesn't feel like there's any life in it because it feels like it's so beholden to the animated version. Whereas like Jungle Book and this feel like, I mean, I haven't seen Aladdin myself, but it sounds like they're allowed to be something more. So I think that's where you can point to, you know, where these things are going to live or fail.
Right. I mean, if I had to point out the one big change between the two movies, it would be Agrabah as a character. It is just the setting in the animated feature. It
to
is
a problematic level.
Yeah,
sure.
exactly. It is a character in Guy Ritchie's film and version
Nice.
of the film. Right down to the fact that it's a port city. So, like, it also kind of makes sense why people would be okay with thieves. Like Agrabah being at like the mouth of a river, but not necessarily just on a river, not at the mouth of the river. Like, because Agrabah is just a river, like adjacent city in the original. This is the kind of stuff I know, just for the record. Like, this is my Smolder Bravestone character stat stuff. Is extensive Disney knowledge. Let's not even just use the music as part of it, but. It's one of those things where, like, if you're in the middle of the desert, you're not going to allow this thief that, like, everybody just kind of knows and accepts. You deal with thieves in that scenario. But, like, in a port town, oh, that's just Aladdin. He comes in every Tuesday with the ship.
Man.
Yeah.
No, like I totally get that. Yeah, and like I said, it seems like this one succeeds, and it has been succeeding. I mean, I'm sitting here looking at some crazy ass numbers. It's made like $900 million on a $200 million budget, you know, and obviously none of that like deals with anything like marketing or anything, but they've far surpassed what must have been the marketing budget for this at this point, right? I don't think I saw more than one preview for this movie, and like I don't know if I ever saw a poster for this movie that wasn't the teaser poster.
Yeah, I feel like they were so nervous about the reaction to Will Smith. That they're like, well, we're going to just, like, let people go see this one and see what happens. And the people that I know around it, I mean, Zach ended up seeing it, too, at different theaters because our lives just, you know, it was very weird. It's like, oh, I was going to see it. Oh, you should have come with us, Zach. Hey, I'm Zach. It was a good moment.
That's just what he sounds like. That's better than your Sylvester Stallone.
Yeah, well, I've interacted with Zach on a level where I can get the character down. Seeing Sylvester Stallone flip me off from a limo, that never happened. That's not enough to get into the mindset of the character. But yeah, so we ended up, so we had a nice discussion, but also some other people I know who saw Aladdin who didn't like it. And were surprised when I said that I enjoyed it.
Yeah, I don't know. I've heard a couple of mixed things out here from people, but also the complaints that the reasons that they've had for not liking it don't necessarily jive with the reasons that I don't or do enjoy a movie. Let's put it that way. That's the most politically correct way I can say that.
Pretty solid, like walking a thin line. Huey Lewis would be proud of you. But the other thing is that those people who said they hated Aladdin loved Yesterday. They're like, it was good. We don't know what your problem was. And then one of them took me aside and he's like, I do need to ask you, though, what was the connection between all the stuff that disappeared? And I'm like, and that's why I don't like the movie. Goodbye, child. Go out into the world and spread this hatred.
Yes, let it flow through you.
Good.
Oh, man.
So yeah, so
Well, awesome.
that was the cinematic journey of this weekend. I did other stuff too, but it's your turn to talk.
So I did some weird movie stuff this weekend. Ended up seeing Spider-Man as we said we were going to talk about later. But then Friday night ended up going to free movies in the park out here. I've been doing, and this week was a weird one. You know, generally they do like some family movies, like they did Over the Hedge last week. A couple of weeks ago they
God, I
did
love
Goofy
Over the
Movie.
Hedge.
Yeah, hell yeah. But you know that's the general idea, something that you can bring the kids to. But very specifically, this Friday night they wanted to do something a little different, and they made it date night, and they picked The Secret Life of Walter Mitty. And I don't know if we ever really talked about this movie before because like it came out I think a couple of years before we ever started doing this. But it's one of those movies that kind of sticks with me and like continuously comes back into my life from time to time. You know, like every now and then I'll sit down on like a bus and it'll be playing on the movie or something. You know what I mean? Like it weirdly doesn't go away. Um,
I would like to just interject briefly, and I'm sorry if this pulls the legs out from under what you're about to say.
did it come out when we?
No, 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 no. I've never
Oh,
seen it, so if
oh.
you could avoid spoilers, or I make the promise to watch it in this next week, so we can talk about it next episode.
I mean, I'll avoid spoilers. We
All
don't
right,
have to dwell
cool.
on it too much. I mean, it's just the thing about it for me is, first of all, I mean, it's based on a short story from the 50s. There's been other movie versions of it, at least one other movie version of it that's very, very different than this one. But what this one in particular does is it's a Ben Stiller movie. He picked it up. He wrote the script, or at least I know that he does his own writing. I don't mean to like be like the dude doesn't do his own writing, but I think this might have been one of the ones where he definitely reached out for some people because I think what it is that he wanted to get this one right. But he does direct it, and I mean he's the lead in it and all that sort of stuff. And it's let me put it this way. I don't know if this is going to come across as an insult or not in your eyes, Devin, but it's his Garden State. Like that's really what this is like him really reaching into that indie bucket and doing that kind of thing where he really wants to get in touch with the artistic side of himself on a very small scale movie, despite the fact that it's actually a very large scale movie. There's really only like four actors in it. You know, like it's weird for a movie that encompasses the world. It really doesn't get much larger because the cast is just so tight. But anyway, it has a lot of really good, like artistically beautiful moments to it. A lot of odd choices that make it a little surreal and things like that. And it's just it's just this beautifully done movie made by a guy that clearly wanted to make it, surrounded by people that wanted to help him make it. And so you get that feeling every shot of the movie. And I think that's why it sticks with me so much. So like it's just weird going back to that movie because like I said, it doesn't ever really leave my life. And I never really thought about it before until I saw it on Friday. And I was sitting there surrounded by all of these people that this is not the kind of movie that these people in my area usually watch. And like I hesitate to sound like a fucking like movie snob or anything like that, and I don't mean to, but the general crowd for these kinds of events in the area of the country that I live in, like Goofy Movie, Over the Hedge, 101 Dalmatians, the live action version, like all of these other movies that have been playing at this thing, that's their wheelhouse. Like that's what they want. They want something that's not controversial, nothing that's going to make them question anything too much, and they want to be able to bring their kids. And if their kids duck in and out of the movie, they don't want to have to care about it. You know, that's what it's built for. So the fact that this group went out of their way to show a movie like Walter Mitty, and like there was quite a few people there, and like pretty noticeably like the percentage of people that normally leave before the end of the movie didn't really happen this time. Like they were just checking it out. And I actually spoke with a woman after who was like, you know, I read a review for this movie beforehand because I wanted to just see what it was about before I invested 2 hours of my life in coming here and doing this. And this is not at all what I expected. And I was like, yeah, I like good. Like I'm glad that's something that you know you weren't too sure about, but you came anyway, and then you found something really good here. Like that's awesome. So it was kind of a magical experience to watch, and to have this movie be in the center of it made total sense. So it was a really, really odd, cool experience that I had. And I don't know, like I don't get too many of those right now because a lot of the movie watching I do is like sitting at my desk at work, or like, you know, a movie that I'm going to like Endgame or Spider-Man, where I'm surrounded by people who know exactly what they're getting into and know exactly what they want from it and are getting that. And then, you know, it's kind of a pretty set in stone experience. It's never so fluid like this one kind of was. And that was awesome.
That sounds awesome. I can't
Yeah.
remember the last time I actually had a moment like that.
Yeah. And that's why I texted you guys immediately, where I was just like, I have to think about this because this movie is actually becoming more and more like it's working its way up the list for me in terms of like meaningful movies in my life. It might have broken the top 10 after last Friday for sure.
Yeah, I've been doing that with hackers. Like, I'm not gonna lie. Like, I don't want to be like, I don't want to compare your emotional art movie to like this crazy film that I am currently embarking on, like a pilgrimage to watch once a week for a year.
Yeah. Well, I mean, on that list is also The Matrix. Like, you got to remember, like, that list is full of all sorts of weird shit. So, like, no harm, no foul. If Hackers is the kind of movie that's doing that for you, that's awesome.
Right. Well, I mean, because I mean, not to steal your thunder or anything like that, but I went to a 4th of July barbecue on the 4th of July. Thank you, Office of Redundancy Department Redundancy. And I asked the time, and it was only like 10:30, and I couldn't believe that it was 10:30 and like the barbecue had dispersed. Like, it really surprised me because
Yeah.
the kickoff time was 3 o'clock, and I ended up getting delayed, so I didn't show up until 5 o'clock. But still, I was one of the first people there.
Oh, yeah, one of those situations for
I
sure.
was like, "Oh, okay, cool, that's fine. I'm not upset. I want to spend time with you guys, so let's do it." And then, like, you figure if you're gonna start a barbecue at like 3 o'clock, you
Right.
expect it to go into the wee hours, right? Like, I don't
Yeah,
know how
man.
much time do you. This is actually a good like societal question. How long do you expect to stay at like any given gathering?
Well, so any given gathering, it's gonna depend entirely on what is my phone doing on? Phone's not on. At any given gathering, like that's gonna be completely different than say like a Fourth of July or a barbecue. You know, like one of the things to consider there is that it is a Fourth of July barbecue. So I would definitely expect to be there till 2 or 3 in the morning. You know, especially in Rhode Island, especially being outside. Like start a bonfire at some point. Like hang out around the fire after the barbecue's over. Like what are you doing? You got, you live in the greatest state to sit out under the stars and smell saltwater air. What are you fools doing with your lives?
Yeah. So when it's dark and we did the fireworks, and you know, we had the best fireworks display. We were actually on a lake, not the ocean, unfortunately, but we had the best damn fireworks display on that lake because I added musical accompaniment,
Oh,
which is what a real good fireworks show
no
has.
wonder everybody left.
Oh, that hurts. You're just mean. I messed up the lyrics to one Disney song because I'm more nervous because I'm thinking about singing a song the proper way when I'm saying it incorrectly, but also proper my entire life. I'm sorry that I said, I don't even know, Ali La Bamba.
Ali La Bamba. La 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 Bamba.
Um,
That joke's gonna keep happening every time you do it.
That's fine. I want it to keep happening. I'm not disappointed at that. I'm disappointed that I walked into it. I like the joke. I don't like being the straight man. But we're cleaning up, and we're like they bring basically their whole life to this lake house. So they're putting like tables and grills into the back of pickup trucks. And I say to one of their brothers who, like, we're cleaning up the deck area, "What time is it?" Thinking that it's like got to be close to 1 or 2 in the morning. And he's like, "Oh, it's 10:30." And I'm like, "Oh, well."
Bars are still open. Jesus, go do something.
So I go, "Oh, well, then I guess I'm not gonna feel bad waking up early to watch Hackers tomorrow." And it kicked off this whole conversation about Hackers. And like this is a relatively new group of friends, but I didn't expect like other people to have serious thoughts about that film. So it was like a nice, pleasant little moment having a conversation with the older brother of the guys that I spend most of my time with, Jake and Justin. It was their older brother, George. And he's
Yeah.
like, "Yeah, that movie rocks."
I mean, it's the closest that normies like me get to like cyberpunk, you know, like techno thrillers. Like it really is. I mean, that and The Net are like your two big hits for the 90s in terms of that. You know, you talk about things like Johnny Mnemonic and suddenly you've lost like 90% of the audience.
Can I blow your mind again? I love blowing your mind. All three of those are 1995.
Whoa. I really?
Yep.
I knew The Net and the Hackers were the same year, but I had no idea Johnny Mnemonic was
Johnny
in there
Mnemonic
as well.
is also 95.
Jesus. Man, that is crazy.
I mean, I might be off, but I'm fairly certain it's also 95.
It's in that same range though. Like it really is.
Like
it
it's
off,
either
like,
it's early 96 or it is late 95. But I'm like, there's this little bit of me that's like, no, they're all 1995. How crazy is that?
Yeah.
It's.
I thought it was like 93. That's why. Guess what I'm gonna do though.
You gonna look it up? Look it up.
I mean,
Look at you do the typing. Let's start fact checking during episodes.
Well, you know. Okay. Yep. Checking. Glasses up. Yep. 95 for sure.
Yep. Thank you. I'm good. I mean, thank you for checking me. It's nice to be checked because, like, a lot of the times I'm pretty certain all three of those movies came out at the same time. Like, 1995 was, we're going to be scared about technology.
Yeah. As we're staring down the barrel of Y2K, let's talk about this.
I don't even think that buzz term had even been created yet. I feel like I was living in Rhode Island for like at least 2 years before my uncle was like, yeah, Y2K is going to happen. And I'm like, why? And he's like, because computers aren't going to know what to do. And I'm like, that seems like a huge oversight. That
somebody out there did not do the math on that, right?
That doesn't really make any sense that just because the computer is told one thing, like civilization's going to end? No?
I mean, he's not wrong. It's just not going to be with that question.
Yeah, that's true. Well, I mean, I think about like every Apple computer I've ever had, and like when it has had catastrophic memory failure, and it goes to December 23rd, 1964, and I'm like, everything in this computer still works. It just thinks that it's 1964.
Like, and all I have to do is go in and fix it.
Yeah. I don't know. Just one of those like, we should have given it 4 digits. We were so cocky, so prideful.
What we could do, not what we should.
Our hubris will be the end of humanity. But yeah, so that's good. I'm glad that you enjoyed Walter Mitty and that it struck you again. And I'm not offended by the Garden State thing, mostly because in the wake of it, Ben Stiller decided to tell more personal stories, like While We're Young and
he ends up producing like Submarines.
Benjamin's Reply or like that whole thing, and he's told more personal stories in the wake of that. He also did Zoolander 2.
Yeah,
which is really like just telling on like, I need to get back my core fan base.
Yeah.
I need to get back the people I alienated from the Walter Mitty incident. But yeah.
Yeah, man. I mean, so saw like awesome movie this weekend. Like you've been watching, also, like I said, some other stuff, bizarre stuff, like rewatching District 9. Can't stop watching Howard the Duck. Somehow found my copy of Super Mario Brothers, the movie. Like,
I can't wait to watch and talk about that. I have a question for you, like a real question for you. I'm behind on Jeopardy. Before we recorded today, I caught up on some Jeopardies that I DVR'd because I was out doing things.
You're secretly 89 years old, but yeah.
Yeah, that too, I guess. If I were 89, I would just watch it on Netflix like a crazy person. I don't get that.
Shut your mouth.
Oh, I'm sorry. We happen to have stumbled into something telling.
It's the Tournament of Champions, you asshole.
It means something, you son of a bitch. But the question was asked, these two brothers are more interested in gold coins? And the guy answered, who are the Mario brothers? And like, that wasn't enough. He had to say, who are the Super Mario Brothers? And I disagree.
I disagree completely. Because they were the Mario Brothers. Super Mario, that's weird. Because it has, that's really weird. Because it hasn't always been Super Mario. Okay.
Yeah, it was just like weird. I need to rewatch it for like syntax and everything. But like first of all, I play along with Jeopardy. Surprise, surprise. I go, who are the Mario Brothers? And then he goes, who are the Mario Brothers? And Alex is like just quiet, and he goes, who are the Super Mario Brothers? And Alex is like, correct. And I'm like,
that's a good way to ask that second part of that question, dude.
Like, I'm like, he answered that correctly. That's their last name.
Who
So
are Luigi Mario and Mario Mario?
who are Mario and Luigi? Like,
Yeah.
it was just a weird moment. I didn't know what to do watching Jeopardy. And then also, that same guy, I have a real problem with how fast and loose they judge things on Jeopardy. Like, very clearly, they said this 4-word phrase means for something starting and finishing, then starting and finishing again. And the category is like everything has the word off in it. So it should have been on again, off again.
Right.
But he said, what is on and off again? And they gave him the points. And I'm like, that's not right. That's not
the
a
phrase.
phrase.
Yeah, that's not the phrase.
We're on and off again. No, you're on again, off again. Like, come on, live in this society. And I'm like, was that Jeopardy trying to, like, make up for the Super Mario Brother incident?
Yeah, they just gave it to him too fast.
It was just weird.
See, now you got to wonder, is this game show, is this quiz show? Is that what this is?
It felt, I don't know. Oh, I have a quiz show level conspiracy to discuss with you off mic for the Wizard.
Oh,
If we
okay.
get to do the panel on the Wizard.
Fantastic. I'm excited about that.
But I feel like
I think it's time, Dad.
I think it's time.
Yeah.
Spoiler friends. I don't want to steal that from Saberboard Jr. I like that thing. Spoilers for Spider-Man Far From Home begin at the 42-minute mark. So you have exactly 33 seconds to get the hell out of here if you haven't seen the movie yet. And honestly, get the hell out of here if you haven't seen the movie yet. Because this
go see
movie
the fucking movie.
should not be spoiled for you.
Yeah,
You should get to see this
sure.
movie knowing nothing. Even the trailers, like, I only saw the one trailer, and I've seen the movie twice now. And
The second
it's
trailer
awesome.
gave a lot more away than I wish it had. I mean, I personally am not a huge like I'm not offended by spoilers, so like I know I had a good time, but I feel like there are people out there that might have seen the second trailer that might have had one or two things picked apart for them that were unfortunate.
Okay, so my first question is, as someone who saw the second trailer, is Mysterio's turn ever revealed in that second trailer?
No.
Okay.
It's nothing that major. It's not too major there, but there is implications that there's something going on. Also, the reveal that they go to Prague, and you know real early on that that's not part of their itinerary. So that was a little bit of a and so the second that he said Prague, I was like, okay, that's how they get to Prague. And like, I think the reveal that their school trip gets taken over is such a like goofy ass moment, and I love that moment, especially when they reveal the bus driver. I just love that whole thing so much, and I was just like, oh man, I wish I hadn't seen that coming. It was kind of one of the rare moments where I was just like, I wish I had no idea that was coming.
I get that. Unfortunately, that's revealed in the very first trailer. I think Nick
Oh,
Fury
is
just
it? Yeah.
hijacked our school trip. And I'm like, I'm okay with that. He's Nick Fury. I like Nick Fury. I want more Nick Fury. But is he Nick Fury? We'll get back to that. Because if I start talking about it now, it's all we'll talk about. And there's so much more to talk about.
It really is.
So my big issue with the movie, I'm going to just get this out of the way real quick, is I would have been on the verge of believing that Mysterio was a good guy. If not for the fact that he referred to our Earth, or the Earth of the MCU universe, as Earth 616. Because even as I'm like, maybe he's good. Maybe like they changed his character. And wouldn't that be something interesting? That like we pulled a trick on you by tricking you into thinking the guy who's always bad and pulling tricks on people is going to be bad. But no, he's actually a good guy. Wouldn't that be crazy?
Yeah, I think that would have been kind of interesting, especially if they had, because going in that line of thought, that would have meant that he wasn't lying. And so the idea that he might have been another universe's Mysterio, and the fact that that Mysterio might actually be a good guy, all of that was very interesting possibility.
Yeah,
for
like
sure.
there were like some cool things, and maybe the reason he becomes the antagonist is because he thinks that Spider-Man is the greater threat to our Earth. And it's like they could have had cool layers, but in the back of my mind the whole time was he referred to this Earth, which I know is not 616, as Earth 616. And that was like this weird thing where Marvel tripped over its own dick.
I mean, kind of. That's
Like,
so meta level,
but
though.
for me,
Like,
like that's the thing. I'm just like, oh, I wish that they had never said this is specifically Earth. I think 8035 is what it might be. I know that it's not 616. That they have been like adamant that 616 is the comics and MCU is a different universe.
right.
So when he used it, I'm like, all right, so he's bad. There's no way that he's good. It's all a lie.
The thing for me that gave it away is honestly the pacing of revealing that there might be other dimensions, and the fact that, as we learn, that's not the case. So I was like, wait a minute, you guys are gonna just zip past the fact that we've created a dimensional rift? Like, we can't do that. We can't just zip past that. That requires more story. And then as the layers started to come together, I was like, oh, that's why we didn't focus on it for too long. Never mind.
Well, especially when you get to the grand reveal that I just want to be talking about. But again, everything in its time. Such a good movie, though.
Yeah.
Like, really, what was necessary to be like, what's next?
Oh yeah. Well, in a perfect way to kind of upswing from Endgame.
Yeah.
Like, really, like no matter what your feelings on Endgame were, this movie had to bring you out of something, whether it was a deep depression or it was disappointment or it was like, you know, an emptiness of not knowing what was next. Like, this movie had to save everybody. Like, like in a weird way, this movie had to save the Marvel universe in a way that Tony couldn't. Like, and like, so there's this sense that there was a lot riding on this film, and I think that it's definitely shown that it picked it up and it ran with it, man. It fucking ran.
Yeah, I mean, it had huge responsibility on its shoulder, and with great responsibility came great power,
Oh,
and
man.
they wielded that power magnificently. I have not felt this way. Dale was saying on Say Report Jr., they also have a lovely discussion about it, so please go listen to A Cool Weird Spot. It's a great episode. That she can't remember the last time she was like this excited about what happens next in a Marvel movie. And the answer is after Iron Man. Like, you haven't felt this way since when you saw Iron Man.
Yeah, for
And
sure,
like, it
man.
was this great movie, but then in the last scene, you're like, what the fuck could that mean?
Yeah. I mean, you know, in terms of highs and lows, this is definitely one of the highest highs that they've had. You know, in terms of anticipation and like everybody buzzing about like what this could all mean and where we're gonna go from here. I mean, the idea of setting Peter up as the next Tony and putting him in this position of like kind of being the center of what they're going to do with the next. I mean, are we even doing phases anymore, or is there something above phase? Like, what's the umbrella above phases? Like, this is definitely
I don't know.
like
I
the
hadn't
revamp,
considered
right? Like,
that question.
right. Because I mean, yeah, okay, so we're in phase 5. Is that what we're going into? That doesn't
We're
feel big
going
enough
into phase
because
4.
this is bigger than that, though, is what I'm saying. I feel
No.
like phase 4 was Infinity War, Captain Marvel.
Okay, that's good that you
And
can
it-
feel that
that's-
way, but they specifically said that this was that was all phase 3.
I mean, they've specifically said a lot of things that have ended up not working out. So
I
like,
guess that's you got a point. I don't know why I'm towing the company line. I
don't know.
I decided that
Like-
was my role here, but
but that's what I mean. Is like we could talk about it being phase 4. Then fine, if that's what you want to say. Either
I
way,
don't want to
still
do
feel
that. That's
phase-
what you want to do. I want to consider it all phase 3.
Well, no, I'm saying. So I'm saying we're beyond phases, is what I'm saying. If you let me get to the end of my point.
I
Like,
understand now.
we are not on phases anymore. We are past that because like we've reset the universe in a way that this really is like Marvel comics like now instead. So let's do that. Let's do those. Let's get away from
to off. Gotcha. That makes sense. I'm sorry.
because we've got. I mean, I think that we're gonna have to rest our shoulders now on Spider-Man on Earth, Captain Marvel in space, and then I think that like your Avengers movies, whatever those are definitely gonna be bringing those two worlds together, right? And that could be completely wrong. We could have something else entirely, like depending on what we see. I mean, even the Marvel docket that has been like going around online as the quote unquote official like phase 4 docket or whatever isn't by any means set in stone. Like there's no way that that we're not going to see a Guardians 3. There's no way we're not going to see another Captain Marvel, but what do those movies look like? Where do they fit in? Who the fuck knows?
I gotta tell you that Marvel has to be pissed that Pokemon got Sword and Shield out as the title of something before they could. They have to be. Because let me tell you, the next Avengers film, if it were Avengers Sword and Shield, and it were like another semi-Civil War-esque thing where, you know, Sword was clashing with Shield, that would be awesome. Where like
Yeah, I mean,
otherworldly threats versus terrestrial threats, and which one of these should Sword be swallowed into Shield, or are both necessary entities? Like,
well, and what we know about the end of the movie, where we see that Fury is in space, and I mean, I'm not going to avoid it any longer. Like the fact that he's working with the Skrull out there, and the idea that Sword might come in and be like, look, we need to bow to the whims of some of these alien races because we just need to make peace because we're new to the universe. And the idea that everybody on Earth being like, no, like we are who we are. We're not going to change who we are just because we discovered out that there's actually aliens out there. And like that being a story for sure, being an important story that they're going to need to tell. Like at some point, they're going to need to come to terms with the fact that there are things out there that are stronger than Earth, but like they don't have to bow to those powers, which I think is important in all Marvel space stories.
right. Especially because a lot of the stuff that came from space in early Marvel stories demanded that we bow to it.
Hmm.
So I think that what the greatest thing the MCU has done is sort of normalize space.
Yeah, slowly but surely, for sure. Yeah.
Oof, oof. All
Well, I
right.
mean, because if you think about it, when they first introduced the idea of outer space, it was through Thor and the idea of the eight realms, and then we slowly started to learn that there was more and more and more out there. Yeah.
Yeah, they've just made it normal, and I think that's very cool. Though in terms of just making it normal, Peter Parker saying that like Thor used to be a myth, but now I learned about him in physics class.
Mhm.
What is the lesson that you teach about Thor?
Well, yeah, I mean, that's a weird question. We did Superman physics all the time in my physics class.
I don't know. My physics class was a real physics class. I don't want to be
We
like rude to your
Okay.
Superman
So
physics class.
so the Superman problem in physics is actually a pretty world-renowned problem. It's called what does Superman eat for breakfast? And you actually sit down and do the math out of how much calorie burning he would need to do in order to leap higher than a building, to be faster than a locomotive, and to stop a speeding bullet. Like you actually figure out the physics of each of those things and discover like, all right, so what would he actually need power-wise in order to do that? And then from that, you can then speculate out what kind of power intake he's taking from the sun and all that sort of stuff. So I imagine that it's much more in that realm, that idea
That's
of like,
incredible. I had a very crappy physics class. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. It was all about the Physics Olympics, where we had to make a canoe out of a box and duct tape, a chair out of newspaper, a Morse code device,
okay.
and I don't even remember the other two. We also had to make kites, and we built a beautiful winged box kite that a student, and you know, both physics classes got together because there weren't enough kids in like each physics class for us to like just do partners because it was a partner project. So I was partnered up with someone in the other physics class. We built this beautiful winged box kite, and then someone in his class sat on it, and I got a D.
Oh,
Even
ouch.
though, even though the night before we got it up 450 feet in the air, and
That
we
seems like
would
some
have
bad
gone,
teaching.
and we would have gone higher, but it was like struggling to pull out of our hands, so we had to reel it in. We used fish like that. That was like that was the cool thing that I did in physics class, and I got a D for it. Even though like we clearly understood all of the principles required because we had the highest flying kite, but it was sat on before we got to demonstrate that. And it's just like, how does someone sit on a kite? It wasn't a small kite, Sejohn. I know we're supposed to be talking
Oh
about Spider-Man,
man.
but it wasn't a small kite. I'm sorry.
Well, small kite aside. So like Peter lives in this world, and as we learn throughout this movie, I think one of the best things that this movie does, and the first one, I wasn't shy about some of my issues with Homecoming, like the fact that I felt it wasn't one of the strongest, like it was as strong as it needed to be. And again, I've talked about this before, just because it wasn't my favorite Marvel movie, it's still winning bronze at the Olympics. Like that's like it's
Yeah.
still doing that.
It's
Like so
safe. It's a very
it,
safe film.
and it needed to be
Yeah.
like the way that they were bringing Spider-Man into the universe, the way that they had to kind of like walk Sony on its leash over and say like, don't worry, this is going to be okay. like, like I think it did exactly what it needed to do. This one was the first one where they really needed to go whole hog and could go whole hog and to what a Spider-Man story could be in the MCU, and they did it. And so there were some things in this movie that were just like awesome. For instance, Peter getting to solve problems not as Spider-Man, but as Peter. Like that moment at the end when he's out of webbing and he realizes he needs to do something really quick to figure it out. But I mean, even building his new Spidey suit and that idea, that beautiful moment that brought literal tears to my eyes of Happy watching him as he starts building his suit, and then Happy turns around and throws on AC/DC. Like, oh, everything about that whole scene was just perfect. And so like some really good moments of Peter, which I think the MCU has done better than any outside of like I don't think that the Sam Raimi Spider-Mans do a good Peter Parker. I've actually been rewatching those lately too. I've seen 1 and 2 in the last week, and I think they do really good like comic booky Spider-Man fights and action and quips. But other than that, I don't think it's a good representation of what I know of as Peter, right? And then like the X-Men movies have always kind of struggled, and especially now looking back at them 20 years later, really struggle to capture those characters, like iconic looking moments and iconic looking like lines and stuff, but nothing that really captures the essence of a true X-Men story in the way that like Logan did, or even First Class did for me. So anyway, so like there's stuff that happens in this that are just so my kind of Marvel, which is not surprising.
Yeah, and the craziest thing is you say that he gets to be like he's the best Peter Parker or the most Peter Parker in this. It's really Far From Home where we get to see that happen. Because I think one of my biggest critiques of the MCU Spider-Man was I didn't get to see enough of him as not Spider-Man. Like even that scene in Homecoming where he gets stuck in like the warehouse.
Yeah.
He's still in suit and he's very much still trying to be Spider-Man because he's paired with Friday, where there's so many minutes and moments in Far From Home where he is just Peter Parker walking in to buy a glass necklace for MJ. I'm trying to think of like putting on that mask and like
I was gonna say even that first moment when he fights with Mysterio for the first not with Mysterio but alongside Mysterio for the first time, you get to see Peter doing those things. It's not Spider-Man doing those moves.
The description of I'm really strong and really sticky is not a way that he would ever define himself behind the mask of Spider-Man. But when he is just like there trying to help, it's this weird. I mean, like Billy Joel is what I'm going to use, and the Faces of the Stranger. It really is like the mask of Spider-Man gives Peter Parker this level of confidence that he needs in order to get past the fact that he's like a fucking kid fighting people who want him dead. And we very rarely, throughout all of the cinematic iterations of Spider-Man, get those moments where he is just a scared, unsure kid.
Well, and I think a huge boon to this particular version of Spider-Man is that it's not wallowing in the loss of Uncle Ben. It's not ignoring it either, though. There were some really beautiful moments in this where you just saw for like a second, like he has Uncle Ben's suitcase and stuff like that. And there's a mention or two of them here every now and then in the movies. But like the fact that we're not watching a kid wallowing in grief because of the loss of his uncle. Now, I do think they do a really good job of seeing him go through the grief of losing Tony, and that being like a good like surrogate for the Uncle Ben story. Because I think even the creator of these movies has even come out and said like you can't do Spider-Man and not do like the loss of a mentor. Like that's just a part of his story. But the fact that they were able to turn that on its head and make it the loss of Tony was super important and super well balanced against the idea that he is able to also go out there and still be happy, right? Like one of the things that I feel like Andrew Garfield really brought to the table was the broodiness that Tobey Maguire never brooded. Like he just didn't. He got weepy and it was goofy as fuck what he did, but he never got broody. Whereas like Andrew Garfield was just like broody all the time. So like it never quite found that balance between the two of them. Whereas like I feel like what they've done with Tom Holland, and I don't know if it's him, I don't know if it's the creators, I don't know if it's just the MCU in general. They've allowed him to express a range of emotions that is totally much more believable than we've ever seen before in Peter.
Right. And then I think it also has to do with the fact that he is very clearly a 16-year-old.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's not like Andrew Garfield where I don't even know how old I felt he was.
Yeah, right.
And,
What is he supposed to be? Yeah.
and Tobey Maguire was it always felt like he was at the end of high school when that happened.
Seeing him play a high schooler now, you just look at it and you go, "Oh, you're like 30, aren't you?" Like it's like watching an old WB or CW show. But you're like, "Oh, David Boreanaz, you are not an 18-year-old vampire. What are you doing?"
Right, but that's not even like the thing. It's one of those things where this is the youngest screen adaptation of Peter Parker we've gotten.
Yeah, for sure.
And that really, I mean, think about when you're a teenager, everything sort of fucking matters to you. So yes, the death of the person that mattered, like your mentor and the person that you've tried to model your life on, like that would mean a lot to you. But then there are also those moments where like, I can't believe I screwed up with that girl. And you're a kid, so you think everything has like that same level of importance. And that's what you see. Yeah. You see this like, if everything is hyper important to me, it's easier to get past those moments and go on living with your life.
Yeah, yeah. Some things that are a little weird, just because we are getting down to the end here, and I want to make sure that I get like everything out about this movie. Is that like there's a couple of things with this movie that you do just kind of have to buy in on. I mentioned earlier, like when they mentioned the idea of other dimensions, it feels like at first you just got to kind of stick with that story and just believe it because the movie's just telling you that's what it is now. And then of course we learn otherwise. But there are a couple of things that the movie also does in that same vein, like the idea of his spider sense. It's actually never really been addressed much before, at least to my knowledge. And I rewatched Homecoming last week, 2 weeks ago. I don't remember that being a huge part of that or not. So like the fact that his spider sense was there is kind of is wonky right now. Beautiful for the movie. Don't know where it came from. So like it's one of those things where I just kind of had to just go with it. And and the movie does a good job of allowing me to do that. So but it is something that I felt weird about. The other thing was I lost it. I can't remember quite what. But yeah, the way that it's able to bring that sort of stuff and along, and I'm able to buy into it for sure. The blip. The idea of the blip. That's what it is. It's how fast everybody seems to have come to terms with the blip. Like it happened, and so now we're in it, and like we're just dealing with the fact that some people are 5 years older. We're dealing with this. I mean, it's hard to not think about some weird stuff with that. The implications. Like I think we knew that with Bruce returning everybody to exactly where they had been, that there was going to be some weird stuff that happened, like for instance anybody in an airplane at the time that they disappeared, like what the fuck. And you could write some weird like story.
Oh my god, those people died.
Well, right. Or you could write some weird story nonsense. At the time, Tony was still very much alive, very much still in control of his drones. Maybe he was ready to save people. Like maybe they did the math and they knew that, like, okay, we need to be ready to catch people. Maybe we need to catch anybody that was driving in a car at the time at 60 miles an hour, and now suddenly here they, whoop, there they go. Like there's some weird stuff that you have to think about with that. But this movie just accepts it and barrels through, and you kind of just have to go with it. And I think all of that stuff is for the benefit. Like I think that if you can let the movie just kind of take you on that ride, it's definitely worth it, because if you sat too long in those explanations, it would not be nearly as good of a movie.
So Zach has just been ranting and raving about how great that the movie starts with the words "in memoriam" written in Comic Sans. The oversimplification of the blip. Sejohn, you fucking fucked me up, man.
Yeah,
like,
right. Yeah.
Like the stuff that I never even considered because of just how simple they made it all seem. Exactly. But like, oh my goodness, like, yeah. That's like the darker underbelly of like May just showed up in her apartment and there was a family living there.
Well, and Yeah, like that's the kind of thing that happens in Marvel movies all the time. You kind of just have to go with stuff and just accept stuff. And good Marvel movies will allow you to not think about it. Bad Marvel movies will, and bad Marvel movies isn't the right way to put it, but movies that you in the Marvel universe that don't work for you, the number one reason I bet that movies don't work for you are because they don't fill in those holes enough for you. Like a la Dale and Captain Marvel in Endgame. Like, I feel like the reason why she has the feelings she does about Endgame come from the fact that that movie does not do a very good job for her of working in why Carol's not around more. That sort of stuff. Right? Like those kinds of holes that don't get filled are the reason people get upset at Marvel movies. And the reason why I never get too upset at a Marvel movie is because it's much easier for me as a viewer to just accept shit like that sometimes. I'm very easygoing and willing to accept a flaw like that.
Okay, so I've calmed down, but like seriously, that you
Yeah.
messed with my head in a way that
Yeah.
I was not ready for at all. So
Yeah.
kudos to you, sir. But
I have a list of things like that that I love too, but I'll save that for the end.
that's wonderful. But actually, you should probably do it. But I will say this: in terms of everybody coming to terms with it, that's one of my biggest problems with Endgame. Oh, more Endgame like breadcrumbs.
Yeah.
Is the first thing we see after the 5 years later tag is a support group and like a basically dead New York City. But then throughout the rest of the movie, that doesn't seem to be the case. It doesn't seem like the world has stopped and come to like a complete halt with the loss of half the population. And that's what I really liked about Far From Home is that like no, they're still playing basketball in the basketball court where people just flat disappeared.
Yeah.
Like in what it gave a better sense of what normal people were doing in those 5 years and how they adapted to it.
For
Far
sure.
better than Endgame did for me at all.
Yeah. I mean, like I have some moments that I could point to in Endgame, but I don't want to argue about Endgame.
Well, I
Like
don't want to argue
I
about
feel
Endgame
like,
either. I just want to say that
but
like
I feel like Far From Home definitely. I mean, and it does what it's supposed to do. It's filling in some of those holes that were left by Endgame,
right.
for sure.
Yeah, so that's it. I want to go like just crazy with like how long Sam Fury, Nick Fury has been Talos.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
do you want
Yeah.
to do that and then give your little list or the other or?
We should talk about that really quick. We got
Okay.
to talk about that. So the reveal in the final credit scene, right? That is the end credit scene, right?
That is the last
Yeah.
thing you are left with.
Is that Fury has actually been up in space the whole time, and he has actually had now here's my question: has he had a bunch of Skrull out there pretending to be him all over the world? Because that's what I would do, or is it just specifically just this one? He's had Talos being him, watching over things.
Well, I would have it be Talos because, and this is all based on Captain Marvel stuff. He
For
is
sure.
sort of the super Skrull of the Skrull in terms of like shape shifting and everything. Like, I think one of the reasons why Soren, his wife, reverts to Skrull form is just because she is not as good at holding a shape the way that we are told Talos is.
Okay.
We have
Okay.
been told that, like, his shape shifting abilities are known throughout the race of Skrull,
Okay.
and that he works at it. I'm not trying to anything like that. And he knows Fury. Like, they went through something together. They have
Hmm.
that lovely just like in Havana moment. So it would make sense that if you're going to have somebody down on Earth who's taken over for you, why not have like just the single understudy?
Well, and it's Fury, so there's
Yeah.
very few people in the universe that he trusts, and
Yes.
so like it would need to be somebody like Talos that he trusts. Like that is definitely I buy that for sure. But yeah, so the reveal that it's been him the whole time gave new meaning to my favorite line in the movie: "Don't invoke her name."
Yep.
Like when the second that they revealed who that was, I was like, oh, that is a whole other
It
level to
means
that line,
it's
man.
like she saved my friggin' race. She ain't
She was
coming down
doing
here
more
for
important
this.
shit.
Like,
Yeah,
are
yeah.
we believe a 16-year-old can handle this. We don't need the hand of God for
Yeah,
what's going on
exactly.
here.
Yeah, see, and so a much cleaner explanation for things than in this than in Endgame, right? Why don't we call the Avengers that whole story?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that it's super interesting, and what that means going forward in the future is going to be pretty phenomenal because we talked about this a little bit when Captain Marvel came out, but the idea of making the Skrull like
The Skrull.
the
Skrull is a
Skrull,
terrible
keep Skrull
movie
as
from
Skrull,
1985.
Skrull as a glaive. But the idea that the Skrull are the good guys right now, or at least helping out the good guys, is going to lead to some pretty interesting storylines down the line. And one of the big things with Captain Marvel that everybody's been wondering is how do you tell a good dramatic story when you do have, like you said, the literal hand of God, as your hero figure. Well, if you're introducing much more heady problems for her to deal with, like the idea that maybe not all the Skrull are bad, like that's going to lead to some really interesting stuff. So she dials back on the power because she's not just going in and punching everything. She has to learn to be diplomatic. And that's going to be so much better than just watching her just beat the shit out of people for the next 10 years.
Right. And I mean, I complained on this show about not loving the ending of Captain Marvel because of just the nature of it. But what that really was her showing I need to be diplomatic. Like, first of all, fuck this guy, but also I'm sending him back with a message. I'm not just going to kill him for what he did. Right. And it really speaks to what her journey is probably going to be going forward in the MCU. Yeah. So, like, having seen that movie a second time, I'm like, this means so much more than my initial response to it, which was just like visceral and very close to the heart because I love the character. And it's like, why wouldn't she just do this? And it's like, well, you also need to consider the fact that, like, she's just been liberated and she needs to decide how she wants to use that freedom. It works. And what you're saying is, heady problems, diplomatic solutions when she could just snap her fingers and eliminate her problems. Right. Is a better story for someone like that. It's the Superman problem, like, all over. Like, how do you tell a good Superman story?
But what we've done, though, is we've introduced Zod. We've had Thanos come in, right? And we've seen what happens when a person with that much power just punches and does what it wants. And so now she has to learn to not be that because she's seen what happens when that power goes to your head. Yeah. So that was really awesome. So the reveal of that is really cool. I think we got to talk about the other end credit scene really quick, too.
Well, I want to talk about the other end credit scene, but I want to go on record on my podcast about how long Talos has been playing Nick Fury on Earth.
Okay.
And it has to be from the time that his SUV was exploded in Winter Soldier.
When you say exploded, you mean when it got turned over and he uses the mouse hole?
Yeah. Well, no. I mean, like, I feel like he was damaged at that point. He still gets out of it and all that, but then he goes to get the Tahiti treatment that Coulson got, and we send him down in light of that.
Very nice. I don't hate it. Yeah, I don't hate it at all.
And the proof of that, the coolest thing is that he has to at least be Talos Fury in Age of Ultron, where he rallies them all together at the Barton household, because name a detail about yourself that's so specific a Skrull could never replicate it. When she's, interviewing Fury to see if he's real and if she can trust him in Captain Marvel. And he says, I can't eat diagonally cut toast. And in that sequence in Age of Ultron, he eats diagonally cut toast.
Nice. That would be amazing. I feel like it can't be the rest of Winter Soldier because it robs him of one of his best moments in the entire MCU, and that's the reveal that his other eye is actually the password to get into.
Right. And that's it. But I feel like damage was done to him there.
Yeah.
And that was when it's like, I need to friggin' rest after this. Can you take over for me on Earth?
And then if you're like me and you consider Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. to be canon, he could not have gone through the full Tahiti project because what happens to the Tahiti project in that show and the way that Coulson locks it down the way that he does.
Right. So, but also that was stupid human scientists doing the Tahiti thing
versus
if he's up in space with Skrull
And God knows who else. Yeah,
Yeah,
for sure.
like getting a Kree blood infusion, because we know that it works to heal a human. We saw it
Hmm.
with Carol. Like, it's just one of those things where a lot of the visual clues about what he is doing
Hmm.
in space made me think, all right. And then to go back and to see someone say, well, he eats diagonal toast in Age of Ultron. And I'm like, bullshit, that can't happen. And then, oh my God, it happened. And I'm like, that would be the level of storytelling that I have always expected from Marvel. And honestly, only expecting it because they're the kind of people who are like, hey, this scene, he eats his toast diagonal. What if we add something about that? And how
Yeah.
that's not Nick Fury? Oh,
Well,
I
so
like
one of the
this. This is
yeah
good.
one of the things that I would add to that theory maybe is just because he could have been depending on Talos to be him even in moments when he wasn't injured.
Right, exactly.
So
That's
like it could even be before Winter Soldier. It's just that in moments like it's him and in moments it's like I would want it. I like that idea that Talos has kind of just been kind of weaving in and out as him as needed. But sure, in moments when he's been gravely injured and needing Talos to come back, for sure.
yeah. I mean, he's the kind of guy who has contingency plans on contingency plans.
Right.
That is like a central focus of the Nick Fury character.
Sure.
So very, very believable that it could be him. I mean, I definitely feel like it's Talos playing him in that moment where he eats diagonal toast. I feel like that's the reason why they put the line into Captain Marvel.
All
Like,
right.
that's their
On
own
record.
personal head cannon. Hand
There you go.
cannon.
Hand cannon.
Boom,
All right.
take that,
Can
zombie.
we talk about of all of the great Iron Man homages, the best Iron Man homage in this whole movie?
We can talk about the best Iron Man homage, but I'm also going to say I love that both of the Spider-Man movies end with someone saying, what the fuck?
Oh
And
yeah,
the fuck
and
being cut
and
off.
it's
Because
it
that
was
was
that same. Yeah,
beautiful.
it
And I
was
feel like
beautiful.
no one's talking about that because of just how freaking insane what you want to talk about was.
Yeah. Well, so Iron Man reveal Peter Parker is Spider-Man, right? And the idea that it is that same moment that Tony gets, but it's not his moment. The idea that it happens to him just like it happens to Tony, but it's Tony's choice and it's not Peter's is such a great way to introduce that idea. Again, going with the concept that they're going to use him to kind of carry the MCU from here on. You know, it had to be Peter revealed as Spider-Man for sure. I'm so excited to see what this means for the world going forward.
Yeah. And also, J.K. Simmons being revealed as
Yes.
J. Jonah Jameson
JJ.
in the MCU.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, he's got to be happy Justice League just fucking failed and shit its
Yeah.
pants.
I am, oh man, I'm so excited because yeah, the reveal of him still getting to play JJ was great, and the reveal of the reveal of that we're all going to know now that Peter is Spider-Man, which is not unheard of in the comics, just like it wasn't unheard of Tony being Iron Man and all this stuff. Like, so it's I'm excited to see where they go. I just cannot believe that moment happened. I was legitimately not ready for it.
Right. And I also want to give props to tying in William from the very first Iron Man movie as the right-hand man of Quentin Beck in this movie was also incredible.
Yeah.
I'm just like, that's that. I know that guy.
I also I kind of knew that we were going to see Mysterio blame Spider-Man. I was ready for that bit of it. The idea that he's going to blame Spider-Man. But my thought is this is all going to fall apart. Like, it's very easy to prove that Quentin was a human on Earth before. So clearly he was lying about being an interdimensional traveler. So clearly he was lying about Spider-Man being blamed for that. So I feel like that's not going to have as much legs as everybody thinks it is.
Okay, well,
Although
you say that, but Spider-Man in the comics consistently performing heroic acts, and the news industry, I mean, the biggest example of fake news, why we should have seen it coming in terms of like the political landscape as it stands right now, is the Spider-Man comics. Because J. Jonah Jameson has been painting his own narrative regarding Spider-Man
Right.
since his introduction.
Well, so what I was going to say is it's very key that they've made J. Jonah Jameson in this an Alex Jones type, meaning that the anti-Spider-Man movement, which you're right, has been in the comics, is going to be much smaller and also much deadlier than I think that we've ever seen before.
Yeah.
And I think that's really interesting. I don't think it's going to be waves of people not believing that he's Peter, because as I said, you can very easily disprove everything that happens with Mysterio now that the truth is out. So I feel like the majority of people are not necessarily going to buy into that lie the way that I think that last scene first hits you as. Like, I think the more you think about it, the more you realize it's not going to affect as many people as you think. But there is going to be a contingency of people that believe by it for sure. Because like you're saying, we live in the era of fake news, and there are people out there that believe anything they see on Facebook. So the second anybody gets on there and sees that shit, for sure, that'll be awesome.
So I mean, the two prongs of what you just said. Oh, I don't want to lose it. I don't want to have lost it. I want to talk about what the director said and what he wants the next movie to be. There's only going to be a small contingent. Oh, you had a beautiful thing, and it made me want to like just jump for joy that you said it. I am just filling time
Alex
now.
Jones. Alex Jones in Facebook.
Alex Jones in a small. It's going to be deadlier. People. Okay, it is in terms of. I remember where I was when I heard that Spider-Man was going to reveal himself as Peter Parker during the original print run of Civil War.
Right.
And my thought at the time was, who does that honestly affect, right? There are like 4 people who know that, and he's an Avenger at the time under the protection of Iron Man. Like, this is not going to change the world. And I now know that to be a very like small-minded, youthful thought that I had in terms of having seen in the movies that if you know that Peter Parker is Spider-Man, oh, here's a whole bunch of people that I can attack because I can't beat Spider-Man, but I can beat up his old ass aunt.
Right.
It's like, that's who I attack. Or, so it does mean something, but you do bring up a good chance. It's probably only going to be like the hyper, like radicalized anti-Spider-Man people who are out there. It's
right.
not going to be the entire, it's not going to be all of New York turning against him, except for the ones who witness his events firsthand.
Yeah, and I have to say that I do believe that everybody's going to know Peter Parker or Spider-Man. I don't think that's going to go away.
No,
I think everybody's going to know that. But the idea of everybody believing that he's responsible for those attacks and that he's like, and he, whatever nonsense Quentin like cut together in that video, like I don't think that that's going to stick for a majority of people.
Right. And I think that'll be good. Now, in terms of what the director has said for what he wants the next movie to be, I would love if it were Kraven the Hunter. I would absolutely. Yeah,
and I mean that would make a
it.
huge amount of sense, right?
Yeah, if like now that I
make
know
him a right-wing nut job and like who believes everything the Bugle podcast puts out and just
or even if like he offers a reward for like whoever brings Spider-Man on the show, and he's just thinking is gonna do it, but then this freaking guy, yeah, I'm gonna go get him. I'm gonna go get me some Spider-Man.
All right, can I talk about my favorite small moment in this movie?
Do. I'm so excited.
For all of the Iron Man-ness of this movie, they do pay tribute really, really quickly in just one moment to Cap and Thor, which I thought was completely, totally necessary, awesome, and well done. And it is the second when he no longer has web shooters, figures out what he's going to do, and then he picks up a shield and it looks like another projector unit with the webbing. And there's a moment where he stands up and he clearly it's a shot for shot of Cap with the shield and the hammer, and like the way that he throws himself up with the hammer and uses the physics of that to get himself up there. Like all of that moment is really quick, really small, but also beautiful because knowing what we know about what this Peter has seen in terms of Civil War, the attacking of Thanos the first time around, and then being gone for 5 years and then coming back in the huge fight with the Avengers at the end, like everything that we know that he probably idolizes in that moment comes to fruition. And it's just awesome. It's just a quick shot, but like one that keeps popping into my head.
Yeah, that was awesome. That's literally one of those moments that works wonderfully. Another thing that's really good on the other side of that is the fact that while they are trapped in the Tower of London, being hunted down by drones, Happy and MJ, Ned, and Betty Brant, and also Flash Thompson is there because, oh my God, I need to tell you my favorite theory that I heard both times I saw this movie, and I'm excited to share that part with you. But we'll get to that. Is the fact that Ned and Betty use a suit of iron armor to distract the drone, where MJ then, hits it with a mace like a hammer, and then Happy uses the shield. Like, that's a really cool homage moment, too, to the fallen heroes or the heroes that are gone. Mm-hmm. And that worked for me on several levels. Now, in terms of the Flash Thompson thing, both showings, so the 8 o'clock showing the day it came out, July 2nd, and then a 4 o'clock showing the next day, people in the audience like, oh my god, Flash Thompson's going to be the Green Goblin.
What?
And I'm like, huh? What?
I don't believe that Brad would be, not Flash, but I might believe that they could do something like that weirdness with Brad, right? He's the weird one that they have that's the kind of the foil to the whole love story.
Yeah. It's just one of those things where it's like, because we never see his dad, and his mother's there, and he's rich, just like Harry was, and I'm like, that'd be a real stretch.
Flash Osborne?
And like, it was just one of those moments where I'm like, I don't know how, after 2 viewings, 2 separate people were like, he's gonna be the Goblin.
Nope.
And I'm like, probably not. He idolizes Spider-Man a bit too much for me to buy that. But then again, it's the MCU, and they've done crazier things, like make the Skrulls the good guys. Huge air quotes around me saying that. Like, I want to believe that they're the good guys, but like, there was a time where I believed the Kree were the good guys during MCU stuff, and that Ronan was just a Kree separatist. Like, there's more to see, and that's the most exciting part that we get in the wake of Far From Home.
Man, good movie. Go see it. The end.
Yeah, go see it. We've just ruined like major plot points, but it's still really, really good. Go see it again.
There's still stuff worth seeing.
Go see it again. Is what
Jake Gyllenhaal. We didn't talk at all about Jake Gyllenhaal.
Jake Gyllenhaal is so good.
He's just so good. I mean, the whole theater scene, golden. Like, yeah.
Oh, that scene that's like, oh man.
I forgot to say that
reason.
Yeah, I know, right? But I need a pair of those glasses. Straight up, they don't need to be AR or any of that nonsense. I just need a pair of those glasses.
I'm sure that they're going to be available soon to purchase, just like how Ray-Bans became huge after Men in Black.
Tessa pointed out that the second that there's a moment in the bar when it's the second that Quentin puts on the glasses where they light him in just the right way where he almost looks exactly like Tony.
Oh yeah, that was like obvious, and it was so good. I'm like, oh man, Quentin Beck, you're working on levels, because it felt like that was also what he did, especially when we saw him at the BARF presentation, and it's like, no, you've cultivated a look to get into this kid's head so that he'll hand those glasses to you.
To everybody's head. I mean, it was a look specifically to make everybody trust him after the fall of Tony. Like, no doubt he was modeling himself for sure.
Yeah, it's that he's the most cerebral villain that we have seen in a long time. Mm-hmm. And that means so much. All right. So I think that's it, right? Like we're approaching the 90-minute mark.
Yeah, no. We got to call it now.
Otherwise we'll just keep talking about Spider-Man because there's so much to say about Spider-Man. And I want to talk about other things too, but that's why you can come back next week and listen to a whole new episode. But in the interim, if you want to talk to Sejohn about any of his feelings for Far From Home, you can find him on Twitter at Siege versus the World.
And if you want to give Devin more shit about Ali La Bamba, you can get him at Devin D. Decker.
You know, I was going to call the episode A La Bamba, but now like it feels like I'm just inviting that. Anyway, Will, I ain't never had a friend like you, so why don't you blink us home?
Thank you for listening to the Say Report with your host Devin Decker and Sejohn Serwick. Please follow the guys on Twitter and Facebook by searching for The Say Report, and you can always subscribe on your podcast channel so this is delivered straight to you and you can enjoy it every week. With apologies to your mother, we'll see you next time.